12 things not worth your money in 2026. And there's a good chance you're spending money on some of them right now. The problem? Most of these things seem normal. Some of them seem smart. And some are so common that millions of people keep paying for them without ever questioning it. But in 2026, they simply don't deliver the value they once did. And the longer you keep spending on them, the more money disappears without bringing any real benefit to your life. Today, we're revealing 12 things that are simply not worth your money in 2026. And trust me, you won't see the last one coming. But before we get into the list, I want to be honest with you about something. This isn't about living like a monk, cutting every pleasure out of your life, or feeling guilty every time you open your wallet. Money exists to be used, and a life spent flinching at every single purchase isn't wealth either. The goal here is much sharper than that. It's about finding the exact spots where your money leaves and almost nothing real comes back with it. The places where you're paying a premium and getting very little in return. Because in 2026, with prices higher than ever and budgets tighter than ever, every dollar you stop wasting is a dollar that can actually start working for you. And some of these 12 things were genuinely worth it at some point. Some made sense 5 years ago, some even 10 years ago. But the world changed, the prices changed, and the value simply never kept up. Let's get into it, starting with the one that quietly costs Americans more than almost anything else on this list. Let's start with the single biggest silent wealth destroyer in the United States in 2026. And it's probably not what you're thinking right now. It's the credit card. More specifically, the interest you pay when you don't pay off your balance every single month. Credit card debt in the United States hit $1.28 trillion at the end of 2025, and the average interest rate sits around 25% per year, which means that for every $1,000 you carry on your card without paying it off, you're losing $250 a year without buying a single thing with it. And here's what makes this expense so dangerous. It doesn't feel like an expense. It feels like a solution. It feels convenient. It feels like you're in control because you're making the minimum payment every month. But the minimum payment is exactly where the trap is. A $5,000 credit card balance at 25% interest, paying only the minimum, can take over 10 years to pay off and cost more than $8,000 in interest alone, meaning you end up paying more than double what you originally spent. The industry knows this. The rewards programs, the cashback offers, the airline miles, all of it was designed to keep you spending more than you can pay. Because the real product the bank is selling isn't the card, it's your outstanding balance. If you pay your balance in full every month, great. The card can actually be a smart tool, but if you're carrying a balance from one month to the next, eliminating that debt is the most important financial decision you can make right now. This one is going to sting for a lot of people, because buying a house is the American dream, and nobody wants to hear that they might be paying more than they should for it. But the numbers tell a different story. In 2026, the average interest rate on a 30-year mortgage sits at 6.48%, and the average home price in the United States remains at historically high levels, which means most people are buying the most expensive house the bank will approve, not the house they actually need. And here's the problem with that logic. The bank doesn't care about your retirement, doesn't care about your investments, and definitely doesn't care if you spend 30 years living paycheck to pay for a house with rooms nobody uses. The bank only wants to know if you can make the payment. And being able to make the payment is very different from being able to thrive while making the payment. There's a cost that most people completely ignore when buying a house. Beyond the mortgage, the average American spends $23,686 per year on additional costs like property taxes, insurance, maintenance, and repairs, and when HOA fees are added, that number climbs to almost $28,000 a year. That means in many cases the extra annual cost of the house is higher than the mortgage payment itself. The right house isn't the biggest one you can finance, it's the one that fits your budget and still leaves room for you to build wealth at the same time. And that difference between the house that impresses and the house that frees you can cost decades of your financial life. This is the expense that grew the most over the last 5 years, and also the one that's best at disguising itself as a necessity. DoorDash, Uber Eats, Grubhub. In 2026, ordering food through an app has become as automatic as turning on the television. And that's exactly what makes it so dangerous for your budget. Because when you order delivery, you're not just paying for the meal. You're paying the delivery fee, the service fee, the packaging fee, the tip for the driver, and in many cases a higher price than the restaurant's regular menu because the apps charge the restaurants a commission, and they pass that cost directly on to you. In the end, a dish that would cost $12 at the restaurant can arrive at your door for $22 or $25. And the average American is doing this several times a week. If a couple orders delivery 3 times a week, spending an average of $35 per order, that's over $5,000 a year thrown away on fees and convenience, enough for a vacation, 3 months of investments, or the beginning of a real emergency fund. And the worst part is that most of the time, delivery isn't really a choice. It's a surrender. It's what happens when you get home tired, with no plan and nothing ready in the fridge. The problem isn't ordering food once in a while. The problem is when delivery becomes the main plan instead of the exception. This one is going to be hard to hear for a lot of people. Not because it's complicated to understand, but because it touches something much deeper than money. It touches hope. In 2024, Americans spent over $113 billion on lottery tickets, a number larger than the combined spending on movies, concerts, and sporting events in the same year. $113 billion in hope. And there's nothing wrong with dreaming. The problem is when the dream replaces the strategy. Because the odds of winning the Powerball are 1 in 292 million. To put that in perspective, you are more likely to be struck by lightning twice in a row than to hit the jackpot. But here's the part that should really make you think. Research shows that around 40 million American households play the lottery regularly, spending an average of $2,500 a year on tickets. $2,500 a year, placed on something with odds of 1 in 292 million. Now imagine what would happen if that same couple invested those $2,500 a year into a simple index fund with an average 8% annual return. In 30 years, that money would grow into over $280,000. Not $1 billion, but a real retirement built with mathematical certainty, not luck. The lottery sells the idea that wealth is something that suddenly happens to you. But building real wealth is exactly the opposite. It's something you do for yourself, slowly, consistently, and without depending on a numbered ball. This is what many financial experts call the single biggest wealth destroyer of the American middle class. And not because cars are bad, but because the way Americans buy cars in 2026 has turned into a financial trap disguised as an achievement. The average price of a new car in the United States reached $49,461 in 2026, and the average monthly payment sits around $750, with 72 and even 84-month loan terms becoming increasingly common. 7 years paying for something that loses value every single day. Because here's what happens the moment you drive a new car off the dealership lot. It immediately loses around 20% of its value in the first year and approximately 60% within 5 years. That means a $49,000 car is worth around $39,000 after 12 months. No scratch, no accident, simply from existing. And there's something even more concerning. Around 31% of people trading in a car today owe more to the bank than the car is actually worth, which means they're paying interest on a value that no longer exists. And when they trade in again, that negative balance rolls directly into the next loan. It's a cycle that never stops. Now think about what happens when you break that cycle. A couple that stops paying $750 a month in car payments and invests that difference in an index fund earning 8% per year over 30 years accumulates approximately $1 million from a car. The right car isn't the newest, isn't the most beautiful, and definitely isn't the most expensive one the bank approves. It's the one that gets you from point A to point B while your money grows somewhere else. This is the expense that seems too small to matter, and that's exactly why it works so well at draining your budget. A bottle of water costs an average of $1 to $2, barely noticeable, but when you put that habit into a spreadsheet and project it over an entire year, the number that shows up will surprise you. Depending on the brand and where you buy it, bottled water can cost up to 2,000 times more per gallon than the water already coming out of your tap, and an American family that regularly buys bottled water can spend between $500 and $1,400 a year on it. That's a vacation, thrown away one cup at a time. And here's the part that will make you think twice before buying the next bottle. You're not necessarily buying safer or purer water. Around 25% of all bottled water sold in the United States is simply municipal tap water that has been filtered and repackaged with a picture of a mountain on the label. And a 2024 study found approximately 240,000 microplastic particles per liter in bottled water samples, a number that doesn't appear on any label. The alternative is simple. A filter pitcher costs an average of $30 and lasts months. A quality reusable bottle costs $25 and lasts years. And a faucet filter solves the problem once and for all for under $50. You pay once and close that leak forever. You know that moment at the checkout when the salesperson asks if you want to protect your purchase for a few more years? That is one of the most profitable sales in American retail, with profit margins of 50 to 80% for the store. Most are never used. And when something does break, the difference between the repair cost and the price of the warranty averages less than $30. The smart alternative is to create a small repair fund with that money. If something breaks, you pay for it. If nothing breaks, you keep the money. But warranties aren't the only automatic expense quietly draining your budget every month without you noticing. Remember when canceling cable felt like the smartest decision in the world? Well, the average American today spends $69 a month subscribing to Netflix, Disney, HBO, Apple, and Hulu all at the same time, which means the streaming bill has quietly crept right back to the same number everyone celebrated getting rid of when they cut the cord. The solution is to subscribe to one service at a time, watch what you want, cancel before the next billing date, and move on to the next one. And speaking of monthly bills that never stop growing, if you're still paying for cable TV in 2026, you're paying an average of $147 a month for hundreds of channels you never watch. That's over $1,700 a year for something you already have in a better, cheaper, and contract-free version on any streaming service. The next one is something most people justify as a necessity, but the numbers tell a different story. Every fall, the same story. A new model launches. The ads take over everything. And millions of Americans trade in a perfectly functional phone for another one that costs over $1,000 and has differences that most people will never actually use. Holding onto your phone for one more year saves you the full cost of a new device, and a refurbished model from the previous generation delivers practically the same experience for half the price. And speaking of paying for something you don't use as much as you think, be honest for a second. How many times did you go to the gym last month? 67% of gym members rarely show up, and the result is that billions of dollars are wasted every year on memberships paid by people who are essentially funding other people's workouts without realizing it. Before you renew, multiply the number of visits you made last month by the cost of a single drop-in visit, and compare that to what you're paying monthly. The result will be eye-opening. And now we've reached the last one on the list, the one we promised from the very beginning: And trust me, you won't see this coming. The timeshare is sold as a smart vacation investment, a property you own, an asset with real value. The reality is completely different. The average entry cost is $24,700, plus an annual maintenance fee of $1,480 that never stops growing, that has climbed 36% over the last 5 years, and that you pay whether you use the property or not. And when you decide to get out, you discover that the resale value is practically zero, and that there are companies that charge thousands of dollars just to help you cancel the contract you signed on a Sunday afternoon after a free lunch and a 3-hour sales presentation. Over 20 years of ownership, the total cost can exceed $60,000, while the resale value moves towards zero. This isn't a vacation property, it's a lifelong subscription you can't cancel. 12 things, 12 decisions, 12 places where your money is disappearing without bringing anything real back. And the most important truth of all of this is simple. It's not about earning more, it's about stopping the losses you already have. Every dollar you stop wasting today is a dollar that starts working for your future tomorrow. And if you want to take the next step and get your finances in order once and for all, we created the Couple Financial Planner plus Vision Board, a practical tool for anyone who wants to stop winging it and start building with intention, whether you're on your own or with your partner. The link is in the first comment of this video. Now tell me something in the comments. Which of these 12 did you never imagine you were wasting money on? Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Every week, there's new content on money, family, mindset, and purpose. See you next time.